Hey guys, also Sean here again. I'm going to do a quick tracing and drawing and coloring, whatever you want to call it. Princess Love. This is Ray J's wife, Princess Love. And I'm gonna have to move this out of my way a little bit. Okay, excuse the camera shake. I try to move out my way. But happy Thanksgiving. I feel pretty good. It's the holidays. You know, let's try not to be sad. Okay, so I'm listening to the audiobook of First Man on the Moon. First Man in the Moon, like on the moon, in the moon, whatever. And it's helping me not to talk while I'm trying to do my work. Because if I talk and do this at the same time, I'm gonna have all types sorts of mistakes. Okay, so let's go and trace out Princess Love. I'm gonna do Ray J eventually. I'm gonna do Tamar. I got put together Tamar, Ray J. My sister suggested for me to do Flocka. So Flocka, and she told me who else I need to do. Billy D. Williams. She want me to do Billy D. Williams. Him back then, not now. But okay, let's go and get started. Let's work on her nose first. We must stick up a handkerchief on these tall spikes here and fasten it firmly. And from this is a center. Okay, get that down. Now let's try the eyes. She has very unique eyes. I don't think she's all the way black. And then, with your shadow on your left, I will do the same to the east. We will look into every gully, examine every skerry of rocks. We will do all we can to find my sphere. If we see the Selenites, we will those hide them as well as we can. Eye makeup. For a drink, we must I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't deal with a marker. I call myself trying to kill time by using a marker. But we're going to keep on going, despite. Now let's do her eyebrows. He must come back to the white handkerchief and stand by it and signal to the other. And if neither, Gavor glanced up at the sun. We go on seeking until the night and cold overtake us. Suppose the Selenites have found the sphere and hidden it. He shrugged his shoulders. Or if presently they come hunting us. He made no answer. You had better take a club, I said. He shook his head and stared away from me across the waist. But for a moment he did not start. He looked round at me shyly, hesitated. Now, he said, if you see me making some mistakes, the mistakes that I make, don't do it. Because I'm wrestling with Tourette's. That's why I'm making mistakes, because of my Tourette's. But if you have Tourette's like me, don't worry about it. Just do what you can do. That somehow was how I felt just then, when he put his feet together and leaped away from me towards the north. He seemed to drift through the air as a dead leaf would do, fell lightly, and leaped again. I stood for a moment watching him, then faced westward reluctantly, pulled myself together, and with something of the feeling of a man who leaps into icy water, selected a leaping point and plunged forward to explore my solitary half of the moon world. I dropped rather clumsily among rocks, stood up and looked about me, clambered onto a rocky slab, and leaped again. When presently I looked for Gavor, he was hidden from my eyes, but the handkerchief showed out brightly on its headland, white in the blaze of the sun. I determined not to lose sight of that handkerchief, whatever might betide. End of chapter. Chapter 19 of If you guys hear my family. This recording has been workspace. Okay, so I tried her out. Now I'm gonna do her skin complexion. I think I'm gonna use. I don't know. I don't have to put something together. I think I'm gonna get this Premiere Art. Oh, this is not the Premiere Art. Yeah, I'm gonna use this. I'm gonna try this Premiere Art yellow. Dry fronds about its edge, and I sat down under these to rest and cool. I intended to rest for only a little while. I put down my clubs beside me and sat resting my chin on my hands. And I'm gonna try with the Premiere Art orange, the Spanish orange with the brown. See what kind of color I get out of it. All veined and spattered with gold, and that here and there glosses of rounded and wrinkled gold projected from among the litter. I'm using my favorite brown toasted toffee too. So I'm gonna put down yellow. And then my toasted toffee. Now I'm gonna try. What's the yellow one? I'm gonna try this yellow. That was orange. Try the yellow on this. Now I'm gonna get this. My little bit of Premiere Art white is on a little bitty. I'm gonna put this down. Yellow. And brown. Let's see. Let's see. White. Orange. And brown. Let's see. I think I'm gonna go with the yellow, white, and brown. Okay, so first of all, we want to use the Premiere Art white. Okay, the Premiere Art white. And try not to smudge because it will smudge on you. It'll smudge your picture up. Did you see my first Black China picture? I was having bad Tourette syndrome in my trademark, my other trademark picture that I had to do at first. It was pretty bad because of my Tourette's. I think I don't know, did I delete the trademark? And I don't know, did I delete my Black China? But I said I was going to do that picture of Black China over again when my Tourette's get a lot more better. And I'm going to do some trademarks pictures too. You know, trying to figure out which trademark picture I want to do over again. Okay, so we got that down. Now, let's put down the yellow. We'll put down the yellow. We need to sharpen the yellow first. Slumbering there rested me greatly, I think, and the sun was setting, and the violence of the heat abating. Through all the time I slumbered. When at last I was roused from my slumbers by a remote clamor, I felt active and capable again. Look, this is now the white I had used is the Premiere color white, and now I use my Crazy Art yellow. I don't know what kind of yellow this is because this is an old pencil that I'm using, and the words is kind of off. I just know that it's yellow. That's it. Much lower than it had been, and the air was very much cooler. I perceived I must have slept some time. It seemed to me that a faint touch of misty blueness hung about the western cliff as I leapt to a little boss of rock and surveyed the crater. I could see no signs of mooncalves or selenites, nor could I see Cavour, but I could see my handkerchief far off, spread out on its thicket of thorns. I looked about me, and then leaped forward to the next convenient viewpoint. I beat my round in a semicircle, and back again in the still remoter crescent. It was very fatiguing, and hopeless. The air was really very much cooler. It seemed to me that the shadow under the westward cliff was growing broad. Ever and again I stopped and reconnoitered, but there was no sign of Cavour, no sign of Selenites, and it seemed to me the moon calves must have been driven into the interior again. I could see none of them. I became more and more desirous of seeing Cavour. The winged outline of the sun had settled down, until it was scarcely the distance of its diameter from the rim of the sky. I was oppressed by the
Okay, so I got the yellow down. Now I'm gonna go. I'm gonna see how it look when I add some peach. I'm gonna add the peach.
I felt how urgent it was that we should decide soon upon our course. We had failed to find the sphere. We no longer had time to seek it. And once these valves were
This is the Premier Art peach. I'm trying to put just a little piece down, not thickly, but just noticeable peach before I put down the brown.
Must get into the moon again, though we were slain in doing it. I was haunted by a vision of our freezing to death, of our hammering with our last strength on the valve of the great pit. I took no thought any more of the sphere. I thought only of finding Cavour again. I was half inclined to go back into the moon without him, rather than seek him until it was too late. I was already halfway back towards our handkerchief, when suddenly I saw the sphere. I did not find it so much as it found me. It was lying much farther to the westward than I had gone, and the sloping rays of the sinking sun reflected from its glass.
Okay, so I just put like a hint of peach down. Now I'm gonna go use my Crazy Art toasted toffee. It's brown. And just go over her face with it.
Set off in vast leaps towards it. I missed one of my leaps and dropped into a deep ravine and twisted my ankle. And after that, I stumbled at almost every leap. I was in a state of hysterical agitation, trembling violently, and quite breathless long before I got to it. 3 times at least I had to stop with my hands resting on my side, and in spite of the thin dryness of the air, the perspiration was wet upon my face. I thought of nothing but the sphere until I reached it. I forgot even my trouble of Cavour's whereabouts. My last leap flung me with my hands hard against its glass. Then I lay against it panting, and trying vainly to shout, "Cavour, here is the sphere!" When I had recovered a little, I peered through the thick glass, and the things inside seemed tumbled. I stooped to peer closer. Then I attempted to get in. I had to hoist it over a little to get my head through the manhole. The screw stopper was inside, and I could see now that nothing had been touched, nothing had suffered. It lay there as we had left it when we had dropped out amidst the snow. For a time I was wholly occupied in making and remaking this inventory. I found I was trembling violently. It was good to see that familiar dark interior again.
Oh, my hands is hurting.
Presently I crept inside and sat down among the things. I threw the glass at the moon world, and it shivered. I placed my gold clubs upon the table, and sought out and took a little food. Not so much because I wanted it, but because it was there.
Alright.
Then it occurred to me that it was time to go out and signal for Cavour. But I
My mama called me home for a minute.
Forthwith. Something held me to the sphere. After all, everything was coming right. There would be still time for us to get more of the magic stone that gives one mastery over men. Away there, close handy, was gold for the picking up, and the sphere would travel as well half full of gold as though it were empty. We could go back now, masters of ourselves and our world, and then I roused myself at last, and with an effort got myself out of the sphere. I shivered as I emerged, for the evening air was growing very cold. I stood in the hollow staring about me. I scrutinized the bushes round me very carefully before I leaped to the rocky shelf hard by, and took once more what had been my first leap into the moon. now I made it with no effort whatever. The growth and decay of the vegetation had gone on apace, and the whole aspect of the rocks had changed, but still it was possible to make out the slope on which the seeds had germinated, and the rocky mass from which we had taken our first view of the crater. But the spiky shrub on the slope stood brown and sere now, and 30 feet high, and cast long shadows that stretched out of sight, and the little seeds that clustered in its upper branches were brown and ripe. Its work was done, and it was brittle and ready to fall and crumble under the freezing air so soon as the nightfall came. And the huge cacti that had swollen as we watched them had long since burst and scattered their spores to the four corners of the moon. Amazing little corner in the universe, the landing place of men. Someday, thought I will have an inscription standing there right in the midst of the hollow. It came to me, if only this teeming world within knew of the full import of the moment, how furious its tumult would become. But as yet it could scarcely be dreaming of the significance of our coming. For if it did, the crater would surely be an uproar of pursuit instead of as still as death. I looked about for some place from which I might signal Cavour, and saw that same patch of rock to which he had leapt from my present standpoint, still bare and barren in the sun. For a moment I hesitated at going so far from the sphere. Then, with a pang of shame at that hesitation, I leaped. From this vantage point I surveyed the crater again. Far away at the top of the enormous shadow I cast was the little white handkerchief fluttering on the bushes. It was very little and very far, and Cavour was not in sight. It seemed to me that by this time he ought to be looking for me. That was the agreement, but he was nowhere to be seen. I stood waiting and watching, the hand shading my eyes, expecting every moment to distinguish him. Very probably I stood there for quite a long time. I tried to shout, and was reminded of the thinness of the air. I made an undecided step back towards the sphere, but a lurking dread of the Selenites made me signal my whereabouts by hoisting one of our sleeping blankets onto the adjacent scrub. I searched the crater again. It had an effect of emptiness that chilled me, and it was still. Any sound from the Selenites and the world beneath had died away. It was as still as death, save for the faint stir of the shrub about me and the little breeze that was rising. There was no sound, nor shadow of a sound, and the breeze blew chill. Confound Cavour! I took a deep breath. I put my hands to the sides of my mouth. Cavour! I bawled, and the sound was like some mannequin shouting far away. I looked at the handkerchief. I looked behind me at the broadening shadow of the westward cliff. I looked under my hand at the sun. It seemed to me that almost visibly it was creeping down the sky. I felt I must act instantly if I were to save Cavour. I whipped off my vest and flung it as a mark on the sere bayonets of the shrubs behind me, and then set off in a straight line towards the handkerchief. Perhaps it was a couple of miles away, a matter of a few hundred leaps and strides. I have already told how one seemed to hang through those lunar leaps. In each suspense I sought Cavour, and marveled why he should be hidden. In each leap I could feel the sun setting behind me. Each time I touched the ground I was tempted to go back. A last leap and I was in the depression below our handkerchief, astride, and I stood on our former vantage point within arm's reach of it. I stood up straight and scanned the world about me, between its lengthening bars of shadow. Far away, down a long declivity, was the opening of the tunnel up
Alright,
which
so
we had
I'm
fled,
back
and
again.
my shadow reached
I don't know
towards
if
it,
you guys hear me
stretched
or not,
towards it,
to do
and
Princess
touched it
Love.
like a finger of the night. Not a sign of
You know what
Cavour,
Mama
not a
called?
sound in all the stillness,
And it's
only
putting,
the
and
stir
if
and
it's
waving
permitted
of the
by
scrub and
Jesus,
of the
you gotta
shadows
answer.
increased, and suddenly and violently I shivered.
Okay.
I began, and realized
Get
once
myself
more the
situated
uselessness of the human
again.
voice in that thin air.
And I see something that's bothering me, so
Of death. Then it was my eye caught something, a little thing lying, perhaps 50 yards away
Okay.
on the slope. Amidst the
That was
litter of
bothering me.
dead
She had like a little,
branches.
those kind of messed up around the neck part. I had to fix that up.
And yet, for some reason,
Okay, I'm finished doing this. Let's finish filling her out.
I did not touch it. I stood looking at it. I saw then that the scattered branches about it had been forcibly smashed and trampled. I hesitated, stepped forward, and picked it up. I stood with Kapoor's cap in my hand, staring at the trampled reeds and thorns about me. On some of them were little smears of something dark, something that I dared not touch. A dozen yards away, perhaps.
Okay, so I got that down. The next thing I want to do is the white. I want to add the white to her skin. Because like she has some white powder on her face with a little blush. So we're going to get this Premier Art white and go over her face with it. Her face and neck.
I have been injured about the knee. I think my kneecap is hurt, and I cannot run or crawl. It began, pretty distinctly written. Then less legibly, they have been chasing me for some time. It is only a question of. The word time seemed to have been written here and erased in favor of something illegible. Before they get me, they are reading all about me. Then the writing became convulsive. I can hear them. I guessed the tracing meant, and that was quite unreadable for a space. Then came a little string of words that were quite distinct. A different sort of selenite altogether, who appears to be directing the writing became a mere hasty confusion again. They have larger brain cases, much larger, and slenderer bodies, and very short legs. They make gentle noises and move with organized deliberation. And though I am wounded and helpless here, their appearance still gives me hope. That was like a war. They have not shot at me or attempted injury. I intend.
Okay, so I got that down. So what I want to do next is I want to grab. Let me see, what do I want to grab?
With this dumbfounding relic in my hand, something very soft and light and chill touched my hand for a moment and ceased to be. And then a thing, a little white speck, drifted athwart a shadow. It was a tiny
I'm gonna go at the sunflower and just go on certain areas with it.
I looked up with
the sunflower.
and the sky had darkened.
And the sunflower is a crazy art.
It was thick with a gathering multitude of coldly watchful stars.
I don't know if it's gonna give me what I'm looking for, but I'm trying to see. Let's see. I don't know. I don't think this sunflower is what I'm looking for, so I'm gonna go back.
Was sinking out of sight, and all the shrubs and jagged and tumbled rocks stood out against it in a bristling disorder of black shapes. Into the great lake of darkness westward, a vast wreath of mist was sinking. A cold wind set all the crater shivering. Suddenly, for a moment, I was in a puff of falling snow, and all the world about me gray.
Now I'm gonna use my toasted toffee again.
And then it was I heard, not loud and penetrating as at first.
And just go to certain areas
like a dying voice, that tolling,
of her face with
that
it.
same tolling that had welcomed the coming of the day. Boom, boom, boom. It echoed about the crater. It seemed to throb with the throbbing of the greater stars. The blood-red crescent of the sun's disk sank as it toiled out. Boom, boom, boom. What had happened to Cavour? All through that tolling I stood there stupidly, and at last the tolling ceased. And suddenly the open mouth of the tunnel down below there shut like an eye and vanished out of sight. Then indeed was I alone. Over me, around me, closing in on me, embracing me ever nearer, was the eternal, that which was before the beginning, and that which triumphs over the end, that enormous void in which all light and life and being.
Okay, so I got that done.
star.
Now I'm gonna get
The cold, the stillness, the silence, the infinite and final night of space.
Premier
The sense
color
of solitude and desolation became the sense
red
of an overwhelming presence that stooped
and
towards
this
me, that almost touched me.
lightly
No, I cried. No, not yet, not yet.
put on her
Wait,
cheek
wait,
as
wait.
blush.
My voice went up to a shriek. I flung the crumpled paper from me.
Because we're gonna have to
scrambled back
blend
to the
everything
rest
out
to take my
eventually.
bearings, and then, with all the will that was in me, leaped out towards the mark I had left. Dim and distant
And let
now
me
in the
see.
very
I guess
margin
I
of
could
the
go
shadow.
on
Leap,
and try to
leap,
blend
retreat
everything
for
out
7 ages.
with the
Before me,
crazy
the
art
veil
white.
serpent-curtained section of
So
the
let's
sun
get
sank
started trying
and
to blend
sank,
all of this
and the
out.
advancing shadow swept the seas and sphere before I could reach it. I was 2 miles away, 100 leagues or more, and the air about me was thinning out as it thins under an air bubble, and the cold was gripping at my joints.
She looked like she liked to
Had
wear
I died, I should have died
very
leaving.
white colored
Once,
powder
and then again,
makeup.
my foot slipped on the gathering snow as I leaped and shortened my leap. I fell short into bushes that crashed and smashed into dusty chips and nothingness. And once I stumbled as I dropped and rolled head over heels into a gully and rose bruised and bleeding and confused as to my direction. But such incidents were as nothing to the intervals, those awful pauses when one drifted through the air towards that pouring tide of night. My breathing made a piping noise, and it was as though knives were whirling in my lungs. My heart seemed to beat against the top of my brain. Shall I reach it? Oh heaven, shall I reach it? My whole being lie down, screamed my
Let
pain
me
and
sharpen
despair.
this.
Lie down. The nearer I struggled, the more awfully remote it seemed. I was numb. I stumbled. I bruised and cut myself and did not bleed. It was in sight. I fell on all fours, my lungs whooped. I crawled. The frost gathered on my lips. Icicles hung from my mustache. I was white with the freezing atmosphere. I was a dozen yards from it. My eyes had become dim. Lie down, screamed despair. Lie down. I touched it and halted. Too late, screamed despair. Lie down. I fought stiffly with it. I was on the manhole lip, a stupefied, half-dead being. The snow was all about me. I pulled myself in. There lurked within a little warmer air. The snowflakes, the air flakes, danced in about me as I tried with chilling hands to thrust
Okay, so now we'll get the
tight and hard. I sobbed,
Premier color white again and just do this around her cheeks.
and then with fingers that quivered and felt brittle, I turned to the shutter studs. As I fumbled with the switches, for I had never controlled them before, I could see dimly through the steaming glass the blazing red streamers of the sinking sun, dancing and flickering through the snowstorm, and the black forms of the scrub thickening and bending and breaking beneath the accumulating snow. Thicker whirled the snow, and thicker, black against the
I'm gonna
light.
use this yellow too. This is a crazy art yellow.
Then something clicked under my hands, and in an instant that last vision of the moon world was hidden from my eyes. I was in the silence and
And
darkness
just go
of
over
the
it.
interplanetary sphere. End of chapter.
This is a different shade of yellow. This is an old pencil, so I can't really see what shade of yellow it is. I just know there's a different
Chapter
shade of
20
yellow.
First Men at the Moon. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. This recording is by Mark Smith of Simpsonville, South Carolina. The First Man in the Moon by H.G. Wells. Chapter 20 Mr. Bedford in Infinite Space. It was almost as though I had been killed. Indeed, I could imagine a man suddenly and violently killed would feel very much as I did. One moment, a passion of agonizing
Okay, so I got that down, and
darkness and stillness.
let's work on her hair.
Nor life, nor sun, moon, nor stars. The blank infinite. Although the thing was done by my
Her
own
hair
hand,
is black.
although
I'm
I
trying to
already
figure out
tasted this very
which black do I want to
effective
use.
Gamore's company, I felt astonished, dumbfounded, and overwhelmed. I seemed to be borne upward into an enormous darkness. My fingers floated off the studs. I hung as if I were annihilated. And at last,
I'm gonna go and use this Premier color black and go over her hair with it.
drifted to the middle of the sphere. I did not know how long that drifting took. In the sphere, of course, even more than on the moon. One's earthly time sense was ineffectual. At the touch of the veil, it was as if I had awakened from a dreamless sleep. I immediately perceived that if I wanted to keep awake and alive, I must get a light or open a window, so as to get a grip of something with my eyes. And besides, I was cold. I kicked off from the veil, therefore, clawed onto the thick cords within the glass, crawled along until I got to the manhole rim, and so got my bearings with the light and blind studs. I took a shell off, and flying once round the veil, getting a scare from something big and flimsy that was drifting loose. I got my hand on the cord quite close to the studs, and reached them. I lit the little lamp first of all to see what it was I had collided with, and discovered that old copy of Lloyd's News had slipped its moorings and was adrift to the void. That brought me out of the infinite to my own proper dimensions again. It made me laugh and pant for a time, and suggested the idea of a little oxygen for one of the cylinders. After that I lit the heater until I felt warm, and then I took food. Then I set to work in a very gingerly fashion on the cabaret blinds to see if I could guess by any means how the sphere was traveling. The first blind I opened I shut in once, and hung for a time flattened and blinded by the sunlight that had hit me. After thinking a little, I started upon the windows at right angles to this one, and got the huge crescent moon and the little crescent earth behind it the second time. I was amazed to find how far I was from the moon. I had reckoned that not only should I have little or none of the kick-off that the Earth's atmosphere had given us at our start, but that the tangential fly-off of the moon's spin would be at least 28 times less than the Earth's. I had expected to discover myself hanging over our crater, and on the edge of the night, but all that was now only a part of the outline of the white crescent that filled the sky. And Cavour, he was already in the decimal. I tried to imagine what could have happened to him, but at that time I could think of nothing but death. I seemed to see him bent and smashed at the foot of some interminably high cascade of blue. All about him these stupid insects stared. Under the inspiring touch of the drifting newspaper, I became practical again for a while. It was quite clear to me that what I had to do was to get back to Earth, but as far as I could see, I was drifting away from it. Whatever had happened to Cavour, even if he was still alive, which seemed to me incredible back in the blood-stained scrap, I was powerless to help him. There he was, living or dead, behind the mantle of that rayless night, and there he must remain at least until I could summon our fellow men to his assistance. Should I do that? Something of the sort I had in my mind, to come back to Earth if it were possible, and then as mature consideration might determine, either to show and explain the sphere to a few discreet persons, and act with them, or else to keep my secret, sell my gold, obtain weapons, provisions, and an assistant, in return with these advantages to deal on equal terms with the flimsy people of the moon, to rescue Cavour, if that were still possible, and at any rate to procure a sufficient supply of gold to place my subsequent proceedings on a firmer basis. But that was hoping far. I had first to get back. I I set myself to decide just exactly how the return to Earth could be contrived. As I struggled with that problem, I ceased to worry about what I should do when I got there. At last, my only care was to get back. I puzzled out at last that my best chance would be to drop back towards the moon as near as I dared in order to gather velocity, then to shut my windows and fly behind it, and when it was past, to open my earthward windows and so get off at a good pace homeward. But whether I should ever reach the Earth by that device, whether I might not simply find myself spinning about it in some hyperbolic or parabolic curve or other, I could not tell. Later I had a happy inspiration.
Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get some Premier color white and go over on certain areas of her hair.
So as to head off the Earth, which it had come evident to me I must pass behind without some such expedient. I did a very great deal of complicated thinking over these problems, for I am no mathematician.
Now I'm gonna get my crazy art white. I'm gonna go her hair with this crazy art white.
Had I known then, as I know now, the mathematical chances there were against me, I doubt if I should have troubled even to touch the studs to make any attempt. And having puzzled out what I considered to be the thing to do, I opened all my moonward windows and squatted down. The effort lifted me 4 times some feet or so into the air. I hung there in the honest way, and waited for the crescent to get bigger and bigger.
I need a shower.
I was near enough for safety. Then I would shut the windows, fly past the moon with the velocity I had gotten from it, if I did not smash upon it, and so go on towards the Earth. And that is what I did. At last I felt my moonward start was sufficient. I shut out the side of the moon from my eyes, and in a state of mind that was, I don't recall, incredibly free from anxiety or any distressful quality, I sat down to begin a vigil in that little speck of matter in infinite space that would last until I should strike the Earth. The heater had made the sphere tolerably warm. The air had been refreshed by the oxygen, and except for that faint congestion of the head that was always with me while I was away from the Earth, I felt entire physical comfort. I had extinguished the light again, lest it should fail me in the end. I was in darkness, save for the earth shine and the glitter of the stars below me. Everything was so absolutely silent and still that I might indeed have been the only being in the universe. And yet, strangely enough, I had no more feeling of loneliness or fear than if I had been lying in bed on Earth. Now, this seems all the stranger to me, since during my last hours in that crater of the moon, the sense of my utter loneliness had been an agony. Incredible as it will seem, this interval of time that I spent in space has no sort of proportion to any other interval of time in my life. Sometimes it seemed as though I sat through immeasurable eternities like some god upon a lotus leaf, and again as though there was a momentary pause as I leaped from moon to Earth. In truth, it was altogether some weeks of earthly time, but I had done with care and anxiety, hunger or fear for that space. I floated, thinking with a strange
Okay, so now I'm gonna go work on this side of her hair.
of all my life and motives, and the secret issues of my being. I seemed to myself to have grown greater and greater, to have lost all sense of movement, to be floating amidst the stars, and always the sense of Earth's littleness and the infinite littleness of my life upon it was implicit in my thoughts. I can't profess to explain the things that happened in my mind. No doubt they could all be traced directly or indirectly to the curious physical conditions under which I was living. I set them down here just for what they are worth, and without any comment. The most prominent quality of it was a pervading doubt of my own identity. I became, if I may so express it, dissociated from Bedford. I looked down on Bedford as a trivial, incidental thing with which I chanced.
Okay, so I got that down. So now I want to do her eyebrows. And I'm going to use the crazy black on her eyebrows.
Been inclined to regard him with a quiet pride as a very spirited or rather forcible person. I saw him not only as
Let me see what this gonna do.
many generations of asses.
Oh, I
reviewed his school days and his early manhood and his first encounter with love, very much as one might review the proceedings of an ant in the sand. Something of that period of lucidity I regret still hangs about me, and I doubt if I shall ever recover the full-bodied self-satisfaction of my early days. But at the time, the thing was not in the least painful, because I had that extraordinary persuasion that, as a matter of fact, I was no more Bedford than I was anyone else, but only a mind floating in the still serenity of space. Why should I be disturbed about this Bedford's shortcomings? I was not responsible for him or them. For a time I struggled against this really very grotesque delusion. I tried to summon the memory of vivid moments of tender or intense emotions to my assistance. I felt that if I could recall one genuine twinge of feeling, the growing severance would be stopped. But I could not do it. I saw Bedford rushing down Chancery Lane, hat on the back of his head, coattails flying out, en route for his public examination. I saw him dodging and bumping against, and even saluting.
Now I'm gonna get this Premier color black and go over her eyes with it.
I saw Bedford that same evening in the sitting room of a certain lady, and his hat was on the table beside him, and it wanted brushing badly, and he was in tears. Me, I saw him with that lady in various attitudes and emotions. I never felt so detached before. I saw him hurrying off to Lipney to write a play.
Did the crazy white
and in his shirt sleeves working at the fair, and walking out to Canterbury because he was afraid to come. Me, I did not believe it. I still reasoned that all this was hallucination due to my solitude, and the fact that I lost all weight and sense of resistance. I endeavored to recover that sense.
I am going to do
about the spear,
her lips, and then I move on to her outfit. Now, you notice I have made the eyebrows a little bit more thicker than what it is on the picture. I did this because I just wanted it like that. I hope you took notice that I had done that, but yeah. So, let's get the Premier color peach, because she had peach lipstick on. The Premier color peach.
That's just where the mistake comes in. Confound it, I cried. If I am not Bedford, what am I? But in that direction no light was forthcoming, though the strangest fancies came drifting into my brain, queer remote suspicions, like a scene from far away. Do you know, I had a sort
I'm gonna see how it does with this sunflower. I've been really experimenting with the sunflower a lot.
And out of space and time, and that this poor Bedford was just a
like
through which I looked at life. Bedford. However I disavowed him, there I was most certainly bound up with him, and I knew that wherever or whatever I might be, I must needs feel the stress of his desires, and sympathize with all his joys and sorrows, until his life should end.
Okay, here's brown. I'm gonna lightly go over it with the brown.
What then? Enough of this remarkable phase of my experiences. I tell it here simply to show how one's isolation and departure from this planet touch not only the functions and feeling of every organ of the body.
Okay, so now we'll get the Premier white.
Strange and
Oh, let me get this off. Still. Okay, and I'm gonna go certain parts of her lips to make it shine.
Dissociated and apathetic, a cloudy megalomaniac, as it were, amidst the stars and planets in the void of space.
Get the crazy out white.
The world to which I was returning, but the blue-lit
now don't go over the whole lip with it. Just go to the side and make sure you leave the white part showing. Now let's work on her outfit. Her outfit she had on looked like an off black.
Until at last I began to feel the pull of the earth upon my being, drawing me back again to the life that is real for men. And then, indeed, it grew clearer and clearer to me that I was quite certainly Bedford after all.
Let me use the crazy art black.
Amazing adventures to this world of ours, and with a life that I was very likely to lose in this return. I set myself to puzzle out the conditions under which I must fall to earth. In the chapter. Chapter 21 of The First Men in the Moon. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. This recording is by Mark Smith of Susanville, South Carolina. The First Men in the Moon by H.G. Wells. Chapter 21. Mr. Bedford at Littlestone. My line of flight was about parallel with the surface as I came into the upper air. The temperature of the sphere began to rise forthwith. I knew it behooved me to drop it once. Far below me, in the darkling twilight, stretched a great expanse of sea. I opened every window I could, and fell, out of sunshine into evening, and out of evening into night. Vaster grew the earth, and vaster, swallowed up the stars, and the
I'm gonna go over my crazy all white.
veil of cloud it wore spread out to catch me. At last the world seemed no longer a sphere, but flat, and then concave. It was no longer a planet in the sky, but the world of man. I shut all but an inch or so of earthward window, and dropped with slackening velocity. The broadening water, now so near that I could see the dark glitter of the waves, rushed up to meet me. The sphere became very hot. I snapped the last strip of wood.
Now I think I want to go over it with some.
Waiting for the impact. The sphere hit the water with a huge splash. It must have set it fathoms high. At the splash, I flung the cavorite shutters open. Down I went, but slower and slower, and then I felt the sphere pressing against my feet, and so drove up again as a bubble drives. And at the last I was floating and rocking upon the surface of the sea, and my journey in space was at an end. The night was dark and overcast. Two yellow pinpoints
I'm gonna
far
go
away
over it
showed
with.
the passing of a
Let's
ship.
see. Do I want? I got these two different gray. I got one gray, and I got gray mist. Gray mist. One gray. I'm gonna go over with the one gray and the gray mist.
I was excited now, and for a time hopeful, in a feverish, impatient way, and so my traveling might end.
Oh, sorry for hitting the camera.
At last I ceased to move about, and sat, wrists on knees, staring at a distant red light. It swayed up and down, rocking, rocking. And my excitement passed. I realized I had yet to spend another night.
And both of them is crazy art gray too
I
at that.
perceived myself infinitely heavy and fatigued, so I fell asleep. A change in my rhythmic motion awakened me. I peered through the refracting glass and saw that I had come aground upon a huge shallow of sand. Far away I seemed to see houses and trees, and seaward a curved distortion of a ship between sea and sky.
My camera's kind of foggy.
My one desire was to emerge. The manhole was upward, and I wrestled with the screw. Slowly I opened the manhole.
I think I might want to shallow it a little bit.
Once it had sunk out.
Well, for crazy or brown, just a little bit, but not a lot, just a little.
Another moment, I had the weight of the window on my hands, and I was open,
No,
wide open to the open
just shallow it a little.
earth. The air hit me on the chest so that I gasped. I dropped the glass screw. I cried out, put my hands to my chest, and sat down. For a time I was in pain. Then I took deep breaths. At last I could rise and move about again. I tried to thrust my head through the manhole, and the sphere rolled over. It was as though something had plugged my head down directly it emerged. I ducked back sharply, or I should have been pinned face underwater. After some wriggling and shoving, I managed to crawl out upon sand, over which the retreating waves still came and went. I did not attempt to stand up. It seemed to me that my body must be suddenly changed to lead. Mother Earth had her grip on me now, no Cavorite intervening. I sat down, heedless of the water that came over my feet. It was dawn, a gray dawn, rather overcast, but showing here and there a long patch of greenish gray.
Get the crazy R white.
Was lying at anchor.
Go over again with the crazy R white.
One yellow light. The water came rippling in long, shallow waves. Away to the right curved the land, a shingle bank with little holes. And at last, a lighthouse, a sailing bark and a point. Inland stretched a space of level sand, broken here and there by pools of water, and ending a mile away perhaps in a low shore of scrub. To the northeast, some isolated watering place was visible. A row of gaunt lodging houses.
Okay, so this is all I'm going to do with Princess Love, my Princess Love picture. This is my cartoon of Princess Love, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. She kind of looked like a Native American. I know she mixed with something, but I don't know what she mixed with, but she's very pretty. Last time I heard was her, she said that she was filed for divorce from Ray J. And I don't know if they went on with the divorce or not, but I guess we'll find out when we watch Love and Hip Hop Hollywood. But I don't know much about it. I don't even watch TV. What I do know is what I get from YouTube, because I don't know, it's a lot more peaceful. I find myself going to bed a lot more better, sleeping a lot more better without TV. Now my dad, he still watch cable TV. My brothers and sisters, they still watch cable TV, but my mom and I, we don't watch cable TV. Every blue moon we watch cable TV, but other than that, we usually just watch the internet. I even got rid of my TV. I got rid of my TV because Jesus told me to. I'm going to take down my satellite. I had a basic cable satellite thing, and I wasn't even enjoying that, but it's a lot more peaceful not having no TV, listening to the audiobook, getting back to my drawings and stuff, and I don't know, it's just a lot more better for me. But like I said, my dad, he still got his TV. My brothers and sisters, they still got their TV too, But me, myself, I've been let it go. I just let it go. Just going around her nose a little bit. Adding little details around her nose. I don't know, can you tell now, but details around her nose. But this is Princess Love. I hope you guys enjoy what I have to do.